Happy Friday, everybody. Max here with your fix of gaming news. Coming up, we've got some official confirmation of what Nintendo is suing the Palworld developers for and how much money is at stake. Sony promises there are plenty more single-player games on the horizon, and Shigeru Miyamoto shared some wisdom on Nintendo's approach to making good games. Let's get into it. Since it was revealed, there was no denying that the creature-collecting survival game Palworld was copying Pokemon's homework more than a little bit, and it seemed like only a matter of time until Nintendo pursued legal action. Though Palworld hit Steam and Xbox back in January, it took until September for Nintendo's lawyers to pull the trigger, and it's taken until now to get official confirmation about exactly what they want Palworld's developer Pocketpair to be held accountable for. According to an official post on Pocketpair's website, Nintendo and the Pokémon Company are going after Palworld for ripping off specific game mechanics that it holds patents for, most notably the ability to capture a creature by throwing a ball at it. There are plenty of obvious visual similarities between the Pals and Pokemon, but copyright infringement of that sort is a lot harder to prove in court. Patents, on the other hand, have a paper trail that makes them a lot more clear-cut. Nintendo and the Pokémon Company are demanding 5 million yen apiece in damages, which is roughly $65,000 total, plus late payment charges, which is really kind of just a drop in the bucket for Pocketpair at this point. Way back in March, the Pocketpair CEO reported that Palworld had already recouped its development costs tenfold, and stating that it was making more money than a studio its size could handle. Since then, Pocketpair signed a deal with Sony to form Palworld Entertainment, a new business for managing this incredibly lucrative IP. A bigger concern, though, is Nintendo and Pokémon are seeking an injunction against Palworld that would block its release. Though again, it's been out since January, and estimates based on Steam sales suggest that it's grossed close to $500 million, so the damage is sort of done already, and if anything, the news that Palworld might someday become unavailable will likely just drive more people to go buy it right now. It's $29.99 on Steam if you're curious. We'll keep you posted on this story as it develops, but it might take a minute. If there's one thing that moves at an even more glacial pace than game development, it's legal proceedings. Speaking of waiting around for games to come out, despite its recent ventures into the live service space this year, Sony is still committed to releasing single-player games. Speaking during an investor call, Sony's finance and IR chief Sadahiko Hayakawa said despite not having any major first-party releases planned before the end of March 2025, the company will, quote, continue releasing major single-player game titles every year from next fiscal year onwards. The next big single-player release is Sucker Punch's Ghost of Tsushima follow-up Ghost of Yote, which is expected sometime in 2025. Another Sony-published sequel is Kojima Productions' Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, which is also expected sometime next year, though it's debatable if that even counts as a first-party title anymore, as Kojima Productions just took control of the IP alongside the game's surprise release on Xbox Series earlier this week. Other than that, the only single-player game that PlayStation Studios has officially announced is Insomniac's Wolverine game, of which we've seen very little. Presumably, all the other first-party studios are busy working on something. It's just a matter of time when we're actually going to hear about it. Sony leaned very hard into live service multiplayer games this year, and I think it's safe to say the results were quite literally hit or miss. Helldivers 2 was one of the best-selling games of the year, while Concord was taken offline barely 2 weeks post-launch and will likely go down as one of the biggest flops in video game industry history. Full disclosure, I host Beyond, IGN's weekly PlayStation show, and Sony having so little on the horizon, aside from a Lego spin-off about Horizon, doesn't give us much to talk about every week. Hopefully, we find out soon what some of the other studios like Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, Bend, and Media Molecule are actually working on. The Game Awards is coming up on December 12th, so fingers crossed we get some big announcements then. And finally, during a Q&A with Nintendo investors, legendary game designer Shigeru Miyamoto offered some insight into how the company is dealing with the increased cost of game development, and unsurprisingly, he is more concerned with making good games than with just making money. In his words, quote, our belief is that what we create is more important than the amount spent on development. We continue refining our products until we are confident that we have created something that our consumers will be satisfied with. With that in mind, what is important is to find ideas that are worth honing, and this has not changed since the era of Nintendo Entertainment System, end quote. He goes on to point out that there's no way to make something that's for everyone, or knowing what everyone wants, or knowing for sure if an idea will pan out with some experimentation, but that it's imperative to create new things, adding, quote, the more you polish something that has never existed before, the more value it brings. A couple other Nintendo executives followed up with a bit of damage control, mentioning the importance of, quote, unique titles that are small in scale, and pointing out that, quote, bigger budgets do not necessarily equate to better ideas, but looking at Nintendo's success, it's very hard to argue with Miyamoto's philosophy. I'm excited to see what wacky Nintendo magic is in the works for that Switch successor that they're apparently experimenting away on. And that is your fix for Friday, November 8th, 2024. If you want to see the PS5 Pro in action without dropping $700, go check out our gameplay of Alan Wake 2 and Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered running on it. It's completely free, but if you want to Venmo me $700, I won't complain about that. As always, for all the latest gaming news, you are already in the right place. IGN. Have a great weekend, everybody. Please be good to each other.